In the vast universe of manga and anime, two names stand out as towering pillars revered by fans worldwide for their groundbreaking contributions to the medium. It's obvious that I like to talk about Dragon Ball. It's something that I've loved for well over a decade now, and as I get older, I realize that it's a pretty good chance that no other anime or manga franchise will be able to duplicate its level of success, especially when you take into account that it's been 40 years since its inception. But if you've been watching my videos for a while, then you know that as a franchise, Dragon Ball is not my favorite anime or manga, nor do I think it's the best. But I have a great deal of respect for Akira Toriyama. I actually enjoy who he is as a writer more than I enjoy Dragon Ball itself. But there is one other mangaka that I want to talk about in this video as well. A while ago, one of my friends asked me, who's more creative, Toriyama or Oda? Now I'm sure some of you know that when I say Oda, I'm referring to Eiichiro Oda, the creator of One Piece. Now in terms of a singular anime, I think One Piece is easily the most successful. The anime is closing in on 1100 episodes, and it seems that the series is more popular than it's ever been. There are manga series that have had anime adaptations that have spanned longer periods of time, like Case Closed and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but I hope we can agree that those stories don't have nearly the same level of world building, character development, and just the overall depth that One Piece has. On one hand is Akira Toriyama, and on the other is Eiichiro Oda. From the cosmic battles of Dragon Ball to the epic odyssey of One Piece, each stroke of their pens have shaped the landscape of manga and inspired generations of fans around the globe. These two have a lot of similarities, but a great deal of differences as well. Regardless of that, their work has resulted in the two biggest anime of all time. How did they do it? Well, for One Piece, Eiichiro Oda might be the most deliberate writer I have ever seen. To say that he plans things in advance is a major understatement. Each One Piece arc flows seamlessly into the next, and even if the quality of an arc isn't what you'd like, there will be no questioning the sequencing of things. For example, I don't like Thriller Bark all that much. I think Moria is a pretty bad villain and the last fight was underwhelming, but there's no questioning the necessity of the events that took place there. From Ryuma to John, Oars, and most importantly, Kuma. In the moment when you're either reading or watching One Piece, it's not always clear that there's ridiculous foreshadowing going on. But then you'll get like 300 chapters later and go, man, what the f***? Like Kuma's devastating ability is showcased during the Thriller Bark arc with Perona, but it was unclear what happened to her. What we were sure of was how he could transfer pain to others. And then we see that mysterious power again in Sabaody, and with the symbolic popping of bubbles, it is implied that Kuma is killing the Straw Hats. But I mean, no way would Oda kill all of the Straw Hats, right? Of course not. But then Kuma tells Luffy that this is the last time he will see him. And then Kuma uses his power on Luffy. Now, about 90 chapters later, we learned that this scary looking man actually saved Luffy and his crew, and that he is a close comrade of Luffy's father. And in terms of why he said he'd never see him again, out of respect for those who haven't caught up on the manga, I'll hold my tongue. But if you are caught up, you know just how ridiculous the story of Kuma really is. I mean, I could go on and on about how important Kuma separating the Straw Hats is and how it strengthens Luffy and the complexity of his character, but I say all of this to emphasize one thing. Kuma was introduced in 2008, and now, 16 years later, his character is finally being fully realized. That kind of writing is ridiculous. But you know who else is ridiculous? Akira Toriyama. At the beginning of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama told the reader that he was gonna make up the story as he went. That is insane. And not because writing a story as you go is something that uncommon, but it is unbelievably rare to write as you go and create one of the most popular stories in the last century. Dragon Ball is one of the greatest freestyles of all time. Considering that the story was written in the 80s and 90s, how many tropes it popularized, and man, even the kind of stories Toriyama wrote had amazing concepts. From start to finish, Akira Toriyama was conceptually efficient. I think sometimes he was a little shaky on how he built upon his foundations, but I think it's easy to nitpick with Dragon Ball. So many series, including One Piece, have used Dragon Ball as a source of inspiration and have had the luxury to see what works and what doesn't. Dragon Ball was the first superstar of its kind, so although I don't think it was the most consistent, I do think Toriyama deserves a lot of credit for being such a pillar in fiction while not having a wild amount of planning behind it. As far as pacing goes, I think both Akira Toriyama and Eiichiro Oda were pretty good. One of the biggest arguments One Piece detractors use is that the pacing is horrible, and yes, that is true for the anime. I've read the entirety of One Piece through Wano twice, and for a story that is over 1100 chapters and counting, I find it extremely impressive that I never thought the story was dragging. And even in situations where Oda hasn't planned, with the Supernova for example, Oda has managed to write compelling stories for most of those characters and involve them in the story in an impactful way. Dragon Ball is a much shorter story in comparison to One Piece, but it's still a long story in comparison to the rest of most manga series. It's well over 500 chapters, and again, I think it is impressive that when reading it from start to finish, I didn't think the story was dragging. But with Dragon Ball, I did feel that at times, the plot was stale. The story follows the same blueprint each time. The Z fighters struggle with the villain while Goku is nowhere to be found. Vegeta looks like he might win the fight, and then either directly or indirectly, Goku beats the main villain with some kind of grand attack. It hit the first time, it's still cool the second time, but after a certain point it's like, man, come on, I want to see something different. Now that could be a result of Dragon Ball's limited power system and lack of world building. So when most people talk about Dragon Ball, specifically Dragon Ball Z, the earliest parts of the series are regarded as the best because that is when Toriyama's style of writing was fresh. Because Oda has planned his story so far in advance, he decreases the chances of his story feeling mundane, and that has resulted in the best parts of One Piece being at different times. For Dragon Ball, I'd say Toriyama really hit his stride in 1988, beginning with the Demon King Piccolo arc and ending with the Namek Saga in 1991. For One Piece, Water 7, Marineford, and Wano are the best completed arcs to me, and Egghead is shaping up to be somewhere at the top of that list as well. But those first three arcs I mentioned are all at different points in One Piece. The kinds of conflicts Luffy and his crew had to endure during those arcs were different and required different types of growth for Luffy and his friends. Growth in Dragon Ball often meant physical strength. For Gohan and Vegeta, growth was a little more complex. Gohan's character arc from the beginning of Z through Cell's defeat was one of overcoming his fears and a coming-of-age story as a whole. Him realizing his role as protector of Earth was one that was foreshadowed for nearly 200 episodes. For Vegeta, growth was seen in how he accepted others around him. For so long, everyone in his life, excluding Frieza, had to bend to Vegeta's will. When he came to Earth, he was shocked yet angry that there could be people that were far weaker than him, but still held strongly onto their principles. By the end of the series, not only had Vegeta become a better person, but he had also grown to accept that his way of thinking may not have been the best. Piccolo saw some development in the early parts of the series as well, but for everyone else, growth meant getting stronger. Growth in One Piece can mean a multitude of things. It can be growth through physical strength, growth through haki, growth due to loss, growth out of the sheer need to be better. But me comparing the two in that way is not me saying that one writer is more creative than the other. I want to be very clear. I like One Piece more. I think One Piece is the superior story, and I do think Oda may be a better overall writer. But does he lose some creativity points because his story was so well thought out? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. I'm a huge fan of both of these artists and have been amazed with their level of creativity, so I can't decide. But I would love to hear your thoughts on who you think is more creative between Akira Toriyama and Eiichiro Oda. So let me know in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. But with that being said, this is BigTune, and thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one.